Hello there, I'm here with Alex Hatfield, psychologist and senior consultant at Hemsley Fraser. Hi, Alex.
Hi, John.
And we are talking today about some work you've been doing with one of our client partners on a new Hemsley Fraser product that responds to what's happening right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about that response?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, John. So, I've been working with our client partners over at Hemsley for a while, and when I started to see just how much scheduled activity was being pulled or cancelled or put on hold, it really made me stop and think. And I initially went into fight, flight reaction and panic, to be honest. And I could tell because the back of my neck went tight, my heart started, pounding a little, and I felt like kind of running at every opportunity for revenue that we could find. And then over the weekend, I kind of regained some of that, my own composure, some hard-won centre, and I thought, well, I'm a psychologist, I'm a leader. I know what's happening to me right now. I know what's happening to me physiologically and in the world right now. It's what I'm trained in. So what can I do from a place that comes from response rather than reaction? What am I capable of responding to? And I realised that actually, I know, and you know, John, that our sense of reality is greatly altered right now. The whole world has changed in the blink of an eye, and we're actually in what I would call triage. And the word triage comes from the French word meaning a French word called trier, which means to sort or to separate out. And I think we are being separated physically, but there's also some separating going on in terms of how we live and how we breathe and how we are on the planet. So I wanted to really separate out my own reactions that were based in fear and worry from what was really being called for here, and what someone in my shoes through a platform like Hemsley Fraser could actually do about that. And I realised that what we needed at a time like this was, more than anything, hope. And I know that hope, as a psychologist, I know that we get a sense of hope from human connection and human connectivity, from caring for each other, and from that very, very human need we have for community.
And so, where did that having reached that conclusion or come to those thoughts, where did that take you? Where did you go next?
Well, I could see that we are in this heightened state, as a race, literally, globally, we're in this heightened state of fight, flight, and freeze. And there's little time to think about anything other than survival for most of us at the minute, literally, whether that's in the workplace, at home, and of course with a virus going around that is a threat to human life. And at the same time, as I sort of come back into myself and we come back into ourselves, I can also see out there that people are searching for higher meaning, they're searching for reason, for purpose, for understanding, for some hold on positivity and a knowledge that we will get through it. We'll get through this and we'll get through it together. And even though we will get through it, and there's no doubt about that, inevitably, I think the world will be different. So you see, at times like this, the human intuition insists on connectivity, it insists on community, it insists on care, and the human being searches for psychological and physiological safety.
And so, could you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that, Alex? That psychological and physiological safety.
I can, yeah. See, the two go hand in hand. There's a psychologist by the name of Abraham Maslow who gave us something called it's a pyramid called the hierarchy of needs. And he said, Maslow said that the physical safety needs to come first. It's like the base of our pyramid. And I think that actually for me, and especially now in what we're experiencing in this crisis, I think the psychological and the physical safety actually come together. They're hefted, they're what I would call hefted together. And we're in a time of prolonged crisis. And of course, I love etymology. I love where words come from and what their true meanings are about. And if I think about the word crisis, it comes from the Greek word, which is crisis with a K, Krisis, which means a decisive moment or a turning point, for better or for worse. And I think that's where we are. I think our leaders today are in crisis, and we believe there's a duty of care to respond to that. And that duty of care is about psychological and physical safety. So you asked how they come together. So imagine, we are in survival mode now. Flight, fight, freeze is triggered in us. And when we're in this state, long term, it has an impact on our immune system's ability to fight off antigens. So that's why we're more susceptible to things like the coronavirus. The stress hormones, the cortisol, the adrenaline, or what we call the corticosteroid hormone, can suppress the effectiveness of our immune system. So stress can also have an indirect effect on the immune system, as a person may use the stress levels may be high. I mean, I know mine are. I know for a fact that my stress levels are higher than normal so far. And of course, behaviorally, what happens for us human beings when our stress levels are higher, and they're higher over a longer period of time, is that we do things like overeat and drink and smoke more than normal. And of course, that again impacts our immune system. So the stress response is really meant to be a short-term reaction to threat. And when the threats are on so many levels, like they are now, it makes sense that we can go into survival mode. So this isn't good for fighting off bugs. So with so much unknown in the world right now, and our sense of reality becoming very, very quickly altered, we're also getting more anxious, sometimes depressed, down, despondent, which forms a cycle that affects physical and mental well-being. Now, as a psychologist, what I do know is that the antidote to this is hope. It's connection, it's care, it's community. All of these things actually improve our ability to bounce back from stress, our resilience ability. And doing things like taking time to reflect, to be mindful, to listen to each other, to give ourselves space and time for the stress response to come back to what we call homeostasis. That's actually what we need, and we can see some of that happening in the world as well. This is what I wanted to respond to. I wanted to respond to those two needs, very, very real needs at the moment, for psychological and physiological safety.
And so, having recognised that need, and can you tell us a little bit more about what is involved with Leaders Connected, exactly how it addresses those issues that you've outlined there?
Yeah, for sure. So it has at its heart connection, care, and community, but not necessarily in the sense of getting a project done or working through a workload. It's really about how we can really respond, how Hemsley Fraser as a learning organisation can really respond to what's happening in the here and now with our customers, with our clients, with those people that we care about, in terms of just bringing people together where they are and helping them to move from a stress state to a more relaxed state. So what we did was we came up with a very simple online process, and we did a successful internal test here at Hemsley Fraser. And this virtually facilitated process really speaks to that human need for connection and care in these times.
What does the process involve then, Alex, in terms of once you get people involved in this program, this product? Can you talk us through that process?
Yeah, so the aim really is to help people connect to what I call true leadership, which is about our ability to respond and to create out of hope rather than reacting from fear. And it's also a space to get out of fight, flight, freeze mode by giving the body and the mind a chance to slow down, and giving us some space internally, some inner freedom to really express how we're feeling, and most importantly, to be listened to with care and compassion for this shared reality that we're all experiencing. So there's nothing more powerful than knowing in your bones that we're all in this together globally. So what we did was we created a 4-step process. And the first is called check-in. And this is facilitated in a way that gives everybody on the call a chance to respond to 2 compelling questions in a way that means no one's going to talk over them, that they've got the undivided attention of their colleagues on the call. It responds to the need to be truly heard and listened to. And of course, the facilitator's role is then to pull out what they're hearing are the issues or the dilemmas or the pain points that the individual's experiencing, but ones that the individual has some locus of control over. So this responds again to the need to regain control over one's life, which many people feel that they've lost, particularly in the work environment at the minute with what's happening economically. So that's step 1, and we call it a check-in. Step 2 is a reflective step, and it's called Go Learn. And this step's prescriptive in that it's a 30-minute space where you literally go and you reflect. So whatever your way of reflecting is, whether that's journaling, practicing mindfulness, sitting, having a cup of tea, allowing the mind to do what it does, allowing your dilemmas to percolate, incubate, so that the subconscious can begin to work on what response the individual may want to act on, what is within their locus of control. So it's a time where there's no phones, there's no laptops, there's no email, there's nothing other than just sitting, with a pen and paper or a cuppa, and reflecting on what is it, what is in my control. So that's step 2. We call that go learn. And then step 3 is called learn together. And this is where everybody comes back into that space. And we use what we call an action learning method, which is not a new thing in learning. I mean, an action learning set's something that we use a lot in Hemsley Fraser in a lot of our leadership development programs. But this time we're doing it online, and we've figured out a really cute little way to do an action learning method called gossip, but it's tweaked for a virtual setting. And it's a chance to really learn from the collective intelligence of the group, but in a structured way. So it's a way to gather more ideas, more responses, things that other people might have experienced that they've done that might help another person, and to really, to be kind of talked about, really. All eyes are on one individual. So that learn together really is about the collective intelligence of the group coming to work towards helping an individual within that group find a way to respond that's in their control. So step 4 is what we call the checkout, which is where the facilitator guides a review of the process so far and the options available to people, so that they can really finish with what we call an intent. And that intent then will be something that's A, within their control, it's something that B, they can go and act on immediately, and C, something that they will hopefully find that it helps them to really drop into themselves again.
And what are the benefits that you would hope to see clients experiencing from going through this process, Alex?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, what we've seen so far is that, first of all, I think it's a unique product, and that the benefits are actually quite clear. I think there is a bit of a moral imperative to stay connected, to hope right now for all of us. And this process goes some way to doing that. It's an opportunity to de-stress, which is really good for our immunity, as well as for caring for ourselves and staying connected to one another. The space itself focuses on what we can do rather than what we're worried about, so it creates responses which give us back a much needed commodity, which is control. And it's a generative process, meaning it's a space where we can lead ourselves, and our leadership can come to the front and be acted upon, which means it's what I call a true learning space with instant application. We've seen this with the pilot that we tested, that the application is actually instant. It's not something that I have to put in my diary. It's something that I really feel I must and have to do now. So it's also a place where we can take care of each other in a way that shows care, that shows community, that helps us to be virtually connected.
And you mentioned there that you've already piloted this within HF. What response did you see?
So we saw a very positive response, actually, and to put a number on it, John, we saw that it was a 5 out of 5 with 100% of respondents saying that they would recommend this to a colleague. So if you were to think about this, our internal net promoter score is 100 plus, which, I mean, it was a small group, it was a group of 6, but everybody said yes, that they would recommend this to a colleague. So having 5 out of 5 and a net promoter score of 100 plus, I think, speaks for itself. But what we noticed anecdotally is that the folk that attended, it was, some people didn't know they needed that space, but once they had it, they realised it was an opportunity to slow down, to think about things rationally, to talk about things emotionally, to stay connected in an environment that, wasn't just about the workload. One participant moved me, actually. They expressed how much they realised they got from the face-to-face community at work, and that, that now was going to be missing for them for the foreseeable future. They came to understand that they would have to work harder at maintaining some of that same sense of esteem and meaning that they got from being face-to-face with people in the office every day. I mean, this is something that we would really normally take for granted, that coming to work gives us, that sense of purpose, that sense of meaning. And the Connect session was crucial in that, because it helped colleagues that, maybe wouldn't see each other every day to connect in a different way as well. Some of the things that really in terms of the impact. A couple of colleagues became much clearer that not only did they need to remain positive and hopeful, but they had to put some boundaries and some structure in place so that they could adapt to working from home. They could adapt to the altered reality so that they weren't always on. And one of my favourite comments came from a colleague who put it this way. They said, it's easy when we feel overwhelmed to think that everything is the problem. And it was good to look at what actually was troubling this person and find ways to work through it. And I think another comment which shows just how scalable this intervention truly could be for our clients is that, this person said, I think everyone needs this right now, not just leaders.
As well as the sort of statistical and anecdotal evidence, the feedback, the direct feedback you got, what sort of things do you think are important to consider around logistics and numbers and, how to actually make this work?
I would say groups of 6 to 8, no more. If we start going upwards, it's what we call a depth facilitation process. So if we start to go upwards from that, we lose the safety of a smaller group. The range of people, if the range of people can be from different departments that maybe don't see each other on a daily workload call, that might help. So if we were to be advising our clients on this, it might be that it's by people nominating themselves rather than being nominated. That also gives us that sensation of, in my story is your story and in your story is my story, so we've got that common point of connection. No more than 3.5 hours max. So you could do 2 of these in a day. They're the main things. 6 to 8 groups of 6 to 8, range of different people from departments that don't necessarily see each other every day, and 3 to 3.5 hours max.
Great. And are there any things that we should be avoiding, things we shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, I'd say don't try and do this for larger groups. It doesn't scale up very well with numbers. So adding another facilitator, for example, wouldn't work because it needs to be intimate, it needs to be personal. It's not didactic learning, so it's not teaching, it's not instructional learning and teaching models and step processes. Which is the common way we disseminate information and digest information during leadership development programs. So it's not that. I think I'd think of it like this. If I was in a position where I was going to be offering this out to my clients, I think I'd think of it like this. So instruction comes from the Latin word instruere, meaning to pile in or to put into. Whereas education, another Latin word, educare, which means to bring forth from within. So what this product is it's true education. It's something very different to instruction.
And just finally, we've spoken before about change and the human reaction to change. Are there some? You're sounding very enthusiastic. Are there some words of encouragement you can offer to clients that this could be seen as a positive thing, to this opportunity, this new product, this new approach?
Yeah, I think for me, these are times when great leadership comes forward. This is a time, it's a true learning time. A lot of learning that we do is, it doesn't have its application immediately. Here, we've got this opportunity to apply our learning immediately. We've got a chance to respond rather than react. And I think knowing and remembering in times of change that these two things, this paradox occurs, and the paradox is, yes, we want to survive and we go into survival mode, but at the same time we're looking for what is emerging, what's new, what's what does it all mean, what's the purpose of this, what is it actually showing us? And I think at a time like this, when we've got something like a pandemic like coronavirus, we can safely see there's also going to be a call for survival, but there's also going to be a call for hope. And I think if our clients and our customers can remember that, then maybe see some real benefit of a changing world and a changing work culture, and help us to be more sustainable.
That's great. Thanks very much, Alex.
You're welcome, John. Thanks for taking the time with me. Go well.